brought to you in living color on NBC.
Hear ye! Hear ye!
Tonight from practically everywhere, it's Dan Rowan and Dick Martin's Laugh-In. Would you shut up?
It's 4 o'clock in Los Angeles. It's 6 in Chicago. And it's 7 p.m. in New York City. Hello, everybody. I'm Mac DeCipio, joined as I am each and every week, God help me, by Amelia the Pitbull Chapman. Amelia, how the hell are you tonight?
Doing great. How are you doing today?
Beautiful. I have a couple familiar faces with us tonight. A legend and an icon. Joining us in tonight's program, Mr. Stephen M. Plym. The M stands for money. How are you, Stephen, my old friend?
I feel like $1 million in change, baby.
I'll tell you what.
Mostly the change.
Yeah, I hear you. And our guest of honor tonight is nothing short of a legend and icon. But you know what? In a business filled with legends and icons, George Schlatter is a living monument to the staying power and longevity of great television comedy. As the creator and producer of Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, George introduced the edginess of the hippie counterculture to mainstream television, and America couldn't help but love him for it. His new book, out in paperback, Still Laughing, A Life in Comedy, details the journey of a man who everyone calls friend and the nicest guy you'll ever meet. Ladies and gentlemen, I mean this from my heart. I am humbled and beyond honored to have as my guest the living testimony of great television comedy, Mr. George Schlatter. George, welcome to the show.
Welcome.
A legend in his own mind.
And I will tell you what, as I said at the beginning, in a business filled with icons and legends, you stand alone, sir, as a monument. And I am honored to have you here. I brought an old friend onto the show with me. I've known Steve Plym for probably 5 or 6 years now, and we're like twin brothers of different mothers. Steve's a great guy, and I want to show everyone. George, you actually wrote the foreword of Steve's book, Tiny Tim and Mr. Plym.
Yes.
How did you get to know Steve, and why?
But I don't know the answer to either question, but it's a relationship that I cherish.
That's wonderful, sir. I did a little bit of homework here. You really began your career in earnest probably around 1959 or 1960, around there, and by 1964 and 65, you were already being nominated for and winning awards in television. Did you already know that you had this kind of gift in you? Do you think you were predestined to be the icon you became?
I think it was because I'd already failed at everything else.
I love that answer. I really do.
I've had a good time.
Love that. By the way, George, we have no language parameters here, so F-bomb away if you feel. Steve,
my job. That's my job.
I want to bring you up here, Steve. Give me your recollections, your memories of meeting George Schlatter, the legend.
Well, I'll tell you, I managed Tiny. I knew Tiny Tim for 25 years. We were great friends. I was an agent. I used to book him at shows and so forth. The last 5 years of his life, I took him over as his personal manager because everybody was, slugging him down and beating him up. Okay. Push comes to shove, blah, 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 blah. And we went to the 25th anniversary. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. George invited us to the 25-year anniversary of Laughing, and we taped for 2 days in Santa Monica. But I met Tiny when I was 21 years old, and we booked and talked, and then I was his manager. I met George Schlatter. Let me tell you something. After I put my book out, all right, and until I put my book out, I had not the privilege of meeting him. However, when I put the book out, we did our national improv in Hollywood, which was, I had to pinch myself. Guess who's on stage? George Schlatter and half of the Laugh-In cast. I'm sitting on stage with George Schlatter, Angelo. I had to pinch it doesn't get any better than that. You know what I mean? And then we asked him, would he please do the foreword to my book? He jumped right on it, and he wrote the best foreword I've ever seen in my life, and I love him for it, and I'm honored, always have been, George.
We had a lot of fun together. We had a lot of fun with Tiny Tim, right?
Well, you know what, George, that's a great segue, my friend. I'd like to bring some memories back for both of you guys. Take a look at this.
Okay.
The toast of Greenwich Village in his first appearance anywhere, Tiny Tim.
A green and yellow biscuit. I sent a letter to my mother. On the way I dropped it. I dropped it. On the way I dropped it. I sent a letter to my mother. On the way I dropped it. Lollipop is sweet. Trip to a candy shop where bonbons play. On the sunny beach of Peppermint Bay, lemonade stands everywhere, cracking jack bells, fill the air, and there you are, happy landed on shore. See the sugar bowl in the Tootsie Roll with the big fat devil's food cake. If you eat too much, you'll go waste with money. Don't shake lollipop. It's a nice trip into bed. You hop and dream away. We on the good ship lollipop. I sent a letter to my mother. On the way I dropped it.
If you ask me, I think the guy is nutty as a fruitcake.
Okay. Your memories of Tiny Tim, George.
Were wonderful. Tiny Tim came into the office. I fell in love with him, and I put him right on the next show. And NBC was resistant, and I said, he's a very famous person in disguise. And so when he came on the air and they realized it was for real, they said, you told us he was a famous person. I said, read these reviews. He is famous. But we had great fun with Tiny Tim. Very talented, very bright man.
Oh, I've got a question for you. You know, there are a number of people, including our friend Steve Plym, a number of people who said that whole falsetto bit was an act, that Tiny was actually a rather baritone voice kind of guy, and not at all the character that he portrayed. Can you verify that for us?
No, that's a lie. Tiny Tim was just what you saw on the air. He was, okay. But he was brilliant. He knew every baseball score. He was brilliant, and not necessarily the best baritone that you've ever heard. But we had great fun with Tiny. He even had fun of him. He even had a sense of humor about himself.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Amelia.
Yes.
He did a lot for us, by the way.
George Schlatter.
Mr. Schlatter, who was the most favorite person that you got to work with? Your favorite?
Other than Mrs. Slaughter, it would be probably Goldie Hawn and Lily Tomlin.
There you go. One of my two
Two of them.
favorite people.
Can't do better than that.
Yes. Absolutely.
That was it, Neil?
Oh, no. That was one question. And how long did it take you to write your book?
What time is it now? Well, what we did, my assistant, Martha Bose, followed me around, and I just telling her stories and telling her stories and telling her stories. And then we give it to John Max, and I said, take everything out that I don't want to read about, that Jolene doesn't want to hear about. So when he shortened the book to about half, well, that's what came out. What's not in the book is kind of colorful and of questionable value. We had a great time writing the book. It was just about laughing.
Mm-hmm.
George, I've got a question regarding the direction your career took in life. You could have done anything you wanted to do. What is it about comedy that you found yourself drawn to? What particular
Laughter is the second best feeling you can have.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to get into the first best feeling because I'll get you canceled. But
yes,
I mean,
we may after this show anyway.
Nobody throws a punch when they're laughing. And laughter is its own panacea. It's its own therapy, and it's been fun. And by the way, I wasn't a big success in anything other than comedy, so I focused on that.
Well, let's talk about that. You know, you found a niche and you succeeded at it, and beyond success. You've made more stars than the Milky Way, my friend. And that's, I don't think that's an understatement.
No, that's
a lot
true.
Of people that owe their careers to you. I want to turn this onto a little bit of a serious note when we're talking about the people that owe their career to you. Do you ever hear the thank yous?
Do I ever what?
Do you ever hear the thank yous from these people?
Oh, yeah, the thank you. Just the laughter is its own thank you. You know, and I've had great fun with a lot of people, and people. A lot of the people we had fun with were people that were not used to doing comedy. John Wayne, and we didn't have enough money to buy guest stars.
Yeah.
So when we started doing laughing, we would stop people in the hallway. Right. And then John Wayne said, I'm not going to do that show. Those people are crazy. We put that on the air. So mistakes. We should learn to cherish and enjoy our mistakes and our failures.
How did you get President Nixon? I got to know, how the hell did you get President Nixon?
Well, Paul Keyes is one of the writers on Laugh-In. And so I needed something to kick off that second season. So I said, Paul Keyes said, I think I can get Nixon. So I said, get him for me too. Anyway, so we stopped him in the hall. So we stopped him in the hall. We said, Mr. Nixon, would you just say, so he said, yes, of course. Suck it to me, suck it. He said, this comedy is new for me. Anyhow, we took that while his people were telling him he couldn't do the show. We took that tape down the hall, put it in the next show, and 2 days later, Laugh-In was the subject of conversation. Richard Nixon was not a bad guy. He was just a bad president, but he had no sense of humor about himself.
The book is called Still Laughing, A Life in Comedy. It is a memoir of sorts, but I will tell you, Mr. Schlatter, that book to me is a how-to book. It's how to be successful. It's how to be funny. It's how to avoid the pitfalls. And thanks to George Schlatter making a number of them, you can avoid the pitfalls. You tell people candidly in your book, you've been fired from a number of jobs along the way. But
yeah, you did read the book. It's a handbook for success and failure. You know, but some of my failures were more enjoyable than some of my successes.
Well, and I want to talk about that. I want you to talk about that. Tell everyone, there's always two sides to a coin. I want you to tell everybody about the invariable failure that turns into the success.
Perhaps my most famous failure was Laugh-In was a huge hit, and so they said they wanted to do a new show. I said, I've got an idea for a new show that's going to blow all the rules. So they said, fine. So we came in with a show that was done as smooth synthesizer and synthetic music, and pictures and whatever. And we put it on and so we taped this show, and they saw the pilot, and NBC went crazy. Bristol Myers loved this show. It's called Turn On. And it was a collage of all the new editing techniques and new sound effects. And yeah, we delivered the show, and the commitment was for 13 shows. Bristol Myers saw the show and upped it to 18 shows. And yeah, we put on the show, and a guy in Cleveland wanted to keep Peyton Place on the air. This guy was some kind of a brain donor that loved Peyton Place. So he started calling all of the stations. So we had a premiere party in New York. And by the time it went from New York, he was calling stations all the way across the country. And by the time it got to California, it had been canceled. So this big hit show that was a big, flamboyant expose got canceled after the first 20 minutes. And so they said to me, they said, "This is great. We'll say we're going to cancel it, and then we'll put it back on the air and surprise everybody." I said, "I'll tell you what kind of a surprise. It's going to be off the air." And so they took it. It only aired 20 minutes. And so then what happened, now some students have found the tapes of that and have now put it out, and people are looking at it. And it's very progressive and disturbing even now, which I'm still proud of. But it was a mind-blow show. And anyhow, that 20 minutes became the most famous cancellation ever in the history of television. I had a lot of successes, but none that I enjoyed as much as being canceled 20 minutes into the first show.
Mr. Schlatter, did people at the time realize that Rowan and Martin's Laughing was a poke at the counterculture?
Yes. Well, there was nothing new. So NBC had nothing to put on opposite Lucy and Gunsmoke. And they needed something to put in there. There was nobody was going to put a regular show in. So I said, well, I've got a show I'll put in there. So we delivered Laugh In, and they put it on because they had nothing else to put on the air. And by the third show, people were talking about this new experience, and it was a mind blow explosion, of comedy and laughs and sound effects. Right. And by the third show, it got a big rating. And I mean, I'm arrogant now, but if you can imagine me with a 50 share, whoa!
Oh,
and, every week, every week, the censors would go into Herb Schlosser's office and say, "This man's doing this and doing that." And he said, "I'll talk to him." So I'd go into the president's office. He'd say, "We have to have a meeting." I'd say, "Well, what do you want to talk about?" He said, "Do just what you're doing." Because nobody'd ever heard of a 50 share before. But we had Goldie and Lily and Artie and all those people. And it was an adventure. But many of my successes are as much as an adventure as many of my failures. But it's been
for people who don't understand what a share is, a 50 share is unheard of in terms of today's television. If you get a 12 or a 14 share, the network's ready to kiss your ass and butter your balls.
Not a bad feeling, by the way. Yeah. See, what I miss today, I see dark colors and I see people in black suits, and I don't see any color. I don't see anybody having fun. I don't see anybody thumbing their nose at society. And they have so many rules now. We had rules then too, but I would say, okay, why don't you just not put it on the air?
George, let's talk about some of those rules. You got away with a lot of shit now, friend. You got a lot. You got away with a lot of stuff. One of the things you got away with that was, and I'm a huge fan of double entendres. You got away with a lot of sexual humor on Laughing back in the day. How the hell did you pull it off with the network?
Well, they didn't understand it. See, that they had never been exposed to anything like that. But it was going so fast that when they were telling me we couldn't do something at one end of the studio, we were doing something else at the other end. It went so fast, and they didn't understand what we were talking about at that point, because nobody had ever gone in with anything like that. And it was an adventure, and it was a bunch of adult children in a huge playpen and it was so fast that before they realized we couldn't say something, it had been on the air, and the audience loved it. It was an adventure.
Stephen Klim, question for George Schlatter, my friend.
What did you just say?
Questions for George Schlatter.
George, how come no Christmas cards? How come no birthday cards? 20 years now, man.
Well, they're on their way. The same thing happened to them that happened to the censor's notes. It just never somehow or other got in the mail.
Angelo, I'm going to repeat myself. Angelo, I'm going to repeat myself, not because I have Alzheimer's. I have half Alzheimer's. I remember half of the shit that I say and do. But I just got to say this because we're live. And this goes down to posterity. This is Angelo's best show. And Mr. Schlatter, I want to tell you on camera, for you to endorse me and my book and to sit on stage with you at the Hollywood Improv and share microphones with you, I'm telling you, man, I had to pinch myself. Thank you so much.
If we're going to bullshit each other, this is not going to work.
Yeah, yeah.
See how he is?
I love you, man. Love this man. Can I just tell you, I love this fucking guy.
Television,
beautiful.
Television today is just a means of broadcast. You broadcast the show, but nobody's breaking the rules. We made new rules.
Yeah,
I think I miss the adventure we had then, and I miss it because Goldie Hawn came in and she was a dancer, so she came upstairs and she said, "What were we going to do?" Because she was not a comedian. So we gave her an introduction of Dan Rowan. She screwed it up so bad. She said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'll do it again." I said, "No, Goldie, that'll be just fine." Goldie never got to rehearse after that. But Goldie is one of the brightest people in the world, but we never let her do anything without being interrupted. See, that's what I miss in television today. Everything is organized and black, and we put those windows, right? We had a piece of material that had those squares on it, and those squares became the set. And so we would open those squares up, and now we built sections of it we could take to anybody's house. So we could have anybody that was not going to do the show pop on into one of those windows. The unexpected, the adventure, the anti-establishment is what we lack today. Yeah. And I would love to see more of it.
Question for you right there, right along that line. And I'm gonna hit you right there with it. You've been around this a long, long time. You've seen the evolution. You've seen the evolution. When did we all of a sudden become so fucking proper?
Well, it's because there were more rules. See, rules and rules and rules. Rules are there to show you what it is you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And you do it. If you focus your career on doing what you can't do, chances are you'll be a success. See, we were having fun. That's it. We were a bunch of adult children breaking all of the rules, having fun, and it worked. And it would work today. But
George, here's the $1 million question, my friend. The $1 million question: will comedy come back? Will comedy come back?
As television continues now, as television continues to sink and sink and sink deeper and deeper, it will come back out of desperation. That's the inspiration for comedy: is failures that get so big and it gets so ugly. You have to do something, and that's what we did with Laugh It. NBC had nothing to put on the air opposite Lucy and Gunsmoke. When this idiot walked in and said, "I've got a show for you," it cost nothing. The show cost nothing. And we put it on the air, and it was a hit before they could cancel it. It was a hit before they understood what had happened. That's what I look for. I look for adventure today. And it's there. The performers are there. The comics are there. The artists are there. All they need is a window. And it'll happen out of desperation.
Well, I'll tell you what, one of the people that we spoke about him briefly, one of the people that you've been associated with over your career, of course, the legendary Tiny Tim, who my dear friend Stephen Plym has had the honor and pleasure and privilege of managing. Could a guy like Tim, could a guy like Tiny Tim today make a living? Could he have a career?
Tiny Tim was half of the thing. Tiny Tim was brilliant and he was funny, but what he needed was the window. And they weren't going to put him. They said, "You can't put this guy on the air. He's a freak." I said, "No, he's a very famous guy. He's a huge star." They said, "Really?" So we put him on the air. When they found out he was for real, they said, "You told us he was famous." I said, "Read these reviews. He is famous." Tiny Tim was brilliant, but he was unusual. Everything today is ordinary. And Tiny Tim, if you put a new Tiny Tim on the air today doing different things, it would explode. We want We hunger for something that breaks the rules. Those rules, the definition of a rule is something to be broken.
Amen.
Well,
Amen to that.
I hope it makes you feel good, Mr. Schlatter. We break the rules on this show every fucking time we go on the air.
Absolutely.
We break the rules. We burn the rule book. We kick ass. We take names. I think you'd be proud of what we're doing here, sir.
Yes.
One of the things I want to do is turn it back right now to Steve Plim, who has more questions for you. Stephen, go right ahead, my friend.
I don't know how you're getting by with this. I don't know how you're getting by with me. I'm not a guest star, you know. I mean, but you're fooling them, and I think that's wonderful. They're going to arrest you.
Go ahead, Stephen.
What can I tell you, Angelo?
Questions for George.
Well,
Question for George?
Adventure. Rule, you line up. If you took a list and list all the rules we have, and then systematically broke every one of them, you'd have a hit television show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Angelo, when we were on stage at the Improv, doing my book opening, and by the way, packed house, George Schlatter, all the laughing crew up there were taking questions and everything. It was just a wonderful thing.
Right.
Yeah, it was like, I don't think that kind of feeling that George Schlatter had, and in those days, to kind of answer your question, I don't think it'll ever come back because of all this bullshit going on, this woke stuff. The music today sucks. It's not even music. Comedy today isn't even comedy. You got the guest. You got the guy. You got the impetus for the comedy genius, one of the comedy geniuses in the world, Mr. George Schlatter.
Thank you.
Yes.
But there's a whole lot of comic geniuses just waiting for a window. And the Smothers Brothers, that was an accident. They didn't mean to put the Smothers Brothers on. And Tommy Smothers became famous for attacking the censors and for refusing to give them the tapes. Well, Tommy was much responsible for our success, because when the network would say I couldn't do something, I would say, well, I could if I was on the Smothers Brothers show.
Right.
And so I was blaming Tommy for all the stuff we were doing that we were told we couldn't do. We've got to introduce more adventure. And I don't mean in clothes or language or something. I mean in invention, in colors, in performance. There's so much we can do now. I just wish more people were doing it.
I echo that compliment.
Yes.
I want to tell you.
Angela, how do you get over a guy like that? Who can follow him? Who the hell can follow him today? In today's world, there ain't nobody even close, baby.
Well, how is it possible you guys are getting by with this? I mean, I'm not a guest star. I'm an old guy with a question.
You are, as I said at the beginning, you're not a legend. You're not an icon. You, sir, are a living monument. You're a testimony to the greatness of television comedy. There was a time in America, ladies and gentlemen, when comedy and television were golden. Now it sucks dick.
Yeah.
It just does. It sucks dick.
Keep using the word living. I like to hear that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I am, in fact,
for you, brother.
you're a living, breathing.
Hey, George, I heard it one time. I heard it a million times. When I was managing Tiny Tim and we were traveling places and whatever, it would just come out and he goes, and you know how he talked, George. He said, I love Mr. Schlatter. Mr. Schlatter is wonderful. Remember that? Mr. Schlatter. Tiny never called anybody. I knew him 25 years. He never called me Steve or Steven. It was Mr. Plim. And that was with everybody.
And was that legit or was that a put on? Was that for real?
He believed it. Look, I was around him 25 years, man. He never broke that rule, not even once. It was
Tiny
Mr. So-and-so.
Tiny Tim was just what you saw, and he was brilliant. He had facts and information that nobody else had, but he was little strange.
Remarkable.
Well, he's one of the most bizarre. Angela, can I tell you something? Can I interject here? Look, one time the Mensa, or where all the brains are, that organization, Mensa or Mensa, whatever they call it. They called me, George, and they said, we want a book. We want to hire Tiny Tim. I said, okay, fine. And, I go through my whole spiel. where is he going to play? How many sets is he going to do and all this? And they stopped me. They said, no, we don't want him to sing at all. I said, excuse me? No, we just want to have dinner with him every day. Get it? I go back to Tiny, tell him, this is the international men's, the highest IQs in the world. And he says, well, how many shows, Mr. Plem? And I said, you're not going to sing? No, you're just going to have dinner and talk. And Tiny thought for 10 seconds, and he went like this. Oh, my God. They just want to study me like a bug. They want to study me, Mr. Plem.
That's right.
And he was right. He was right.
Well, George, I was told that I would have about 30 minutes with you. If it's okay with your people, I'd like to have maybe another 5 or 10 more. Is that okay?
Yeah, Tiny Tim, we should have more of those. The fact that you took a chance on Tiny Tim and sent him to me was the first step. We need somebody that will take that kind of an adventure, because there's more me out there, there's more you out there, and there's more Tim out there. If anybody has the guts to combine those elements, you can have another explosion.
Way to go, George. Thank you very much.
Amelia, questions for George Schlatter?
First, I wanted to say our condolences to the family of Bob Newhart. We just learned that we lost him today.
Yes.
And my question, Mr. Schlatter, is I overheard that you had worked with him. What was your favorite memory or memories with Bob Newhart?
My favorite memories with Bob Newhart was the first show I put him on when they didn't understand where this intellectual performer was coming from, because Newhart was a brilliant, brilliant man, talking about things that nobody else was talking about. And I had a great time with him. But the network questioned, they said, what is this guy talking about? I said, I don't know, and I don't care, but it's funny.
Exactly.
And I will miss Bob Newhart.
Yes.
We need more adventure. Newhart came out there in a suit and was very straight at a time when anybody had hair and all that stuff. And Newhart came out and was talking about subjects and language and words and everything. And it was the audience was hungry for Bob Newhart.
Absolutely.
Yes.
George, you are one of the last of a generation. A lot of your contemporaries are no longer with us. A lot of the stars you created and shows that you gave us are no longer with us. But you
That's
still
right.
are. Thank God you are still with us. And
Thank you. Say it louder.
You'll be
Your
with us forever.
accomplishments and your legacy will outlive all of us, including yourself. One of the things I do want to ask you on a serious note.
What's that?
You gave us incredible talent over the years. Where is the next batch of great where are the next Sinatras? Where are the next Sammy Davises, Dean Martins? Where are the next Tinys coming from?
See, that's the trap right there. Don't look for the next Sinatra. Don't look for the next Robin or the next Billy Crystal. Look for the new. See, you don't want to do the next one because there can be no next Sinatra. He was bigger than life, but there's somewhere out there lurking a Tiny Tim or a guy who is the next replacement of Sinatra, now the new Sinatra.
Right.
And Robin Williams is a new Robin Williams is somewhere. I saw him on the street, barefoot, wearing coveralls and a straw hat, and he had a fishing pole. He was hanging it out over the audience saying, I'm fishing for assholes. Well, what you need is a guy to walk up and say, I love this guy. And he needed a window. That's all he needed. That's out there. They're there. They're lurking around. They've grown up on us and they're not content with us. They want to break rules. Good. Those rules were there to be broken. And there's new rules
Absolutely.
that must be broken. When that happens, you'll find a new Tiny Tim, a new Robin Williams, a new Billy Crystal.
I have one more little piece of film I want to show everyone, and then I have to say goodnight to George Schlatter. Let's take a look at this.
Okay.
One and only Tiny Tim.
Oh, tiptoe through the window, by the window, that is where I'll be. Come tiptoe through the tulips with me. Through
much of the magic was that Dick Martin had no idea what was going to happen, and it just happened, and it was accident, and it was a mistake, and it was great, and it was wonderful.
I am so thankful to hear you volunteer that. I was going to ask you, was that a bit? Because if it was fucking brilliant.
Well, no, it was a mistake. Dick Martin had no idea what Tim was going to do, but I did. I was the only one in the building that knew what Tiny Tim was going to do. And when he came on, the audience went crazy, and they wanted him. Tiny Tim became a star the next day, and he would be. You couldn't do a new Tiny Tim.
I have to let you go, George. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am so honored. I'm humbled to have you on my show.
I don't know whether honored is the right word. Just promise to have me back in less than 30 years.
Absolutely.
Yes. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, I'll have you back in 6 months. I'm serious too, for sure.
Yes.
I'll come back anytime. I'll sneak in to get in.
Thank you, George.
I'll let him in through my door.
Hey, George.
Steve, say good night. Steve, say good night to George.
Good night, and thank you for everything you've done for my career, George.
Thank you. I'll do it again.
It was a pleasure.
George, thank you for giving him a career. It got him out of the house a little bit.
Great fun. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you, George. Take
Glad
care.
to be here.
Good night.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
God bless, baby.
Oh.
That was spectacular.
Yes.
Wow.
That was George fucking Schlatter, television legend. Are you shitting me?
Best of the best, guys.
Kidding me?
Wow.
I'm so happy. I got to run a commercial now. God, no better commercial than for sweaty balls. Watch this.
Do you have sweaty balls or volleyball netty balls? It's time to make them ready balls. The Manscaped.com Lawnmower 3.0 will do the job and clean your knob with its patented no-nick head, so your head will function as desired. Enter promo code Wrestling Future for a generous 20% discount. That's enter Wrestling Future for a 20% discount. Manscaped.com and Wrestling with the Future, going balls to the walls with Manscaped.com and the Lawnmower 3.0. Your balls will thank you, and so will we.
WWTF Radio 88.7 BRS is live and around the world. This is What's the Buzz, America's Best Podcast, on the record tonight with television producer George Schlatter. And what an amazing show that was. We still have an icon with us. His name is Stephen Plym.
Yes,
Stephen
M.
Plym, in fact. The M stands for money. He is the author of this amazing, check this book out, Tiny Tim and Mr. Plym. Guess what, Stephen? You're up to bat, baby.
Okay, let's hit a home run. What do you want me to do? Questions, answers, whatever, baby. I love the show, by the way.
What we're going to do. I'm going to ask the questions. You're going to answer them. How about that?
Okay, I'll try.
Okay.
Okay. When did you first meet Mr. Tiny Tim? I
was 21 years old.
Yes, sir.
I opened my first entertainment agency when I was 19. I had a band for 7 years. That's all I've ever done. Went right into booking bands. I was a young agent, 21 years old, and I booked Tiny Tim. Now check this out, man. I booked Tiny Tim, and he was the height of his career, right? I was so excited. In Waterloo, Iowa, at a club in Waterloo, Iowa. So I took my mother and my father and my wife and a couple friends up and watched the show. That was it. Went in his dressing room, brought my mother in. Tiny took his tie off, signed it to my mother, sprayed it with perfume, shook my hand and said, "Let's be friends forever." And from that day on, seriously, that day on, we were friends, talk, blah, blah, blah. Then I would book him at engagements, you know, where he was going to perform and whatever. And we get together for social things. But the end was, or toward the end, he was so fucked up by so many people, agents stealing from him. Seriously, man. I mean, theft.
Well, can we talk about? I want you to really like kind of elaborate on this, because we didn't really have the chance when Vince Russo was with us on the show. We didn't really have a chance because we were kind of under time constraints, but we've got the time now. So let's talk about Tiny was, as you and I talked privately, Tiny Tim was very naive in some areas. He always wanted to be paid in cash. He always put his money in his shoes.
Thanks for remembering that. Hey, you could always tell. Very good student of our history. Payday, everybody that's listening to Tiny Tim, you could always tell when he got his money, because he's from New York City. He would always take the wad of money and put it in his tennis shoe. So he would walk like this, uneven.
He would walk with a limp.
Had money.
he walked with a limp because his shoes were unbalanced.
Right. So you know, Tiny had money. He was paid.
So where did that? Was it his nature just to be kind to everybody? Did he not know, Steve, that they were mistaking his kindness for weakness?
Sometimes in serious conversations that he and I would get into, okay? And I mean very serious conversations. Sometimes we'd park in front of the hotel in a snowstorm, right? And talk until the sun came up, okay? And in those conversations, he knew that. He got it, but he didn't care. He's a loving, kind human being, okay? He was my best friend. He would do anything for anybody. Now watch this. I'll tell you an example, okay? I think you know this, but he was going to a long trip, Australia, okay? 14-hour flight or whatever. I pick him up at the airport. He's got one bag, that's it. We go downstairs. The cab comes to take him to the airport, right? Tiny opens his wallet. Bill, right? That's it. The guy comes up 2 feet, grabs his bag, walks by 2 feet. Tiny hands him $50. I said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" He said, "Mr. Plitt, he needs it much more than I. I'm favored by God. God will take care of me. Don't worry." I said, "Let me give you some money. You got to have money on this trip." "No, Mr. Plitt, I'm fine." That's the kind of giving, caring. And a lot of people may say, well, he's stupid or he's an idiot, whatever they want to say. He was a good humanitarian man, and he believed in Jesus Christ, and he took care of everybody. He did, because he said,
"You know how much he was worth?" Did Tiny have any idea how much he was worth?
You mean in monetary money?
Yeah, financially.
Financially.
He wasn't worth shit financially.
Oh.
He spent every dime he ever made.
Oh, God.
Oh, wow.
Okay, yeah.
In the beginning, Angelo, in the beginning, you know, okay, when he was hot,
I'm shocked. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm shocked.
Well, I'm telling you the fucking truth.
Yeah,
he was making.
Steve, I know you for 6 years. I know.
This is back in '68 and '69, where they put one name on the marquee at Caesars. You know what I mean, like Sinatra or whatever. Yeah. It was Tiny.
Yeah.
He was making $60,000 a year. That's in 1969. That's a lot of money
that's
there.
I
don't know
that's
what
a lot
translates.
Of yeah, you better believe it.
60 grand a week, right? Tiny Tim, and he'd give it all away. When we would travel, I used to travel with him all over the country, right? He would buy all these cosmetics, very expensive, everything, lotions, perfumes. Oh my God. We'd go to the thing and he'd buy like $800 worth of stuff, right? And maybe we're only there 1 or 2 days. When we'd leave the hotel, right? He'd leave it all on the vanity. I said, "What are you doing? Pack this up." "No, it's for the maids. They need this. They need it. They don't get this."
So he gave his money away. He gave all his money away.
Well, that's just the kind of guy he was. And in the beginning, I went, what the hell? But then I became to know him and everything. And that's why we became best friends. I love the guy. I miss him. He was a genuine Holy Spirit, man. Yeah. I'm telling you. And George Schlatter, you just heard George, okay? One of the greatest producers of TV ever, right? And he knew he was genuine.
Incredible. An icon. George is an icon, a monument. Amelia.
Yes.
I can get better.
For the other legend, Stephen and
Absolutely.
Cindy for money.
Hello again. It's good to see you, first of all.
Hi, Amelia. It's good to see you.
For Tiny Tim, I know that you had managed him for a long time. Is there anyone else that you had wanted to manage that you didn't get to manage?
Probably everybody in the world, right?
I know somebody Stephen Flynn managed that he wished he hadn't managed.
Okay.
Guy, his name is Ray, rest his soul, Ray Peterson.
Mm.
You know, you have an elephant's memory, buddy.
Thank you.
He does.
No, he does. Because I told him, and this had to be like 4 or 5 years ago on one of the shows that I did with you guys. Okay. Ray Peterson was, okay, if you just walk up to people and go, who's Ray Peterson, Ray? Even music aficionados, they don't know. But he does. Okay. Tell Laura I love her.
Oh,
or
yes.
Corina, or The Wonder of You. And Elvis Presley came to Ray Peterson and asked him personally, can I sing your song?
Yeah, because Ray Peterson wrote The Wonder of You.
Yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable.
It was his song.
Ray Peterson, all you listeners out there, hit Ray Peterson on your YouTube. Ray Peterson. He has one of the purest voices you'll ever hear in your life.
Beautiful
he only had
voice.
3. He made a lot of records, but he only had 3 big hits. But those hits were big. Corina, The Wonder of You, and Tell Laura I Love Her. Okay,
and made him a multi-millionaire.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, it did. But to go back, circle back, like what's her face used to say, Tiny wasn't worth a dime of monetary. You know, when he died, he spent it all as fast as he made it. And you know what? He gave it a lot away. You know, in Vietnam times, okay, you know who paid for hundreds of color TVs to be sent to the hospitals for the veterans? Tiny Tim. Yeah, nobody knows that.
No, it's the first time I'm hearing it, Steve.
Yeah, he didn't announce that. He didn't want any credit for that. He's just a caring guy, and he's taking care of guys with no arms and no legs that stood up for America. And I'm telling you, Tiny Tim was a real American. He was a John Wayne, okay? I'm a Republican all the way. Okay, listen, Tiny Tim, different people in the media, they would say, well, what's your political affiliation? I love this line. You know what he'd always right of Attila the Hun.
Just right of Attila the Hun.
Yeah, get it?
Yeah, I get it. Trust me, I'm old. I get it. Trust me. Amelia, she's young. She's just a young whippersnapper. Amelia, question. Yeah, I'm sure you've got more questions.
Oh, yeah, of course. And also, you know, with everything that's going on right now, as far as these artists that are getting, like you were saying, you know, by these managers are being taken advantage of, what's good advice that you would give someone to look out for being taken advantage of?
Stay out of the business.
Stay out of the business. Yeah, that's a good one. Really.
For real. Straight up.
Hey, Amelia, do you know how many calls? Check this out to answer your question directly. Do you know how many calls, emails, texts that I get a week? It's unbelievable because I'm out there. I'm a public figure. They know my history, blah, blah, blah. I want to be a star. I want to be a singer. I want to be an actress. They have no, fucking idea of what it would take. And they think they have no idea.
Yeah.
1/1,000,000 of 1% make it because they don't have this. Even if they're very talented, they don't have the stamina, man, to take all the closed doors, all Angelo knows this, all the no's, all the rejection that you got to take. You know, I'll tell you something. For my book, Tiny Tim and Mr. Plim, my book, Tiny Tim and Mr. Plim, and yes, I'm bragging right here, okay, was a big hit. But guess what? Thank you. He's showing it to you. Buy it on Amazon, everybody. I had 38 publishers tell me no. Tell me no.
Yeah.
But I just kept going and going. And finally I found somebody and I had a successful book. But if I'd have quit after 5 or 10 or 20 or the 38th, I wouldn't have had that. But look at that. There's me with hair down to my ass. He's holding up the picture. That's a telethon. We were at a telethon there in Des Moines, Iowa on that one. I remember.
Look how young you were. You had your real hair.
Wow, look at that.
This Amelia, this was Stephen back. I don't know whose hair was longer, Stephen's or Tiny's.
Right? It looks like they both were competing, right, for who had the longest hair.
I'm just glad, on a serious note, which I don't get serious very often, but on a serious note, Angelo, I'm glad you guys are doing shows like this that are like right down to the meat and potatoes, serious things like with George Schlatter and Tiny Tim. These kind of, because you just had George Schlatter on, man. I'm telling you something, Angelo. Kudos, baby.
Thank you.
He doesn't just go on any show.
Stephen, I never asked you about this. I want to show you some pictures. I want you and our listeners, our viewers also, to take a look.
Oh, wow, that's a nice one.
Now, that's out of my book. Oh, this is, okay, this one down here below. Angelo, put it up again, please.
Yeah.
The one down below on your left. Okay, that's me and Tiny at a Christmas party at my house.
Oh,
I'm drunker than shit. And so's Tiny. Look at us.
Yeah.
We're shit-faced.
I was going to ask you
Those
about
are the best times, though.
You
Tiny drank
it a little bit, but I was going to ask you.
When Tiny drank beer or wine or anything, it was out of a straw.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. Well, tell everybody why he did that.
Human hands haven't touched that. He was a germophobic. Okay?
Yeah.
I was like, when you told me that the first time, I was like, for real? He was a germaphobe? He wouldn't touch anything that somebody else had touched. He had to drink his beer out of a straw, which is a bad thing because it'll get you drunker quicker.
Faster. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
yeah.
When we went to hotels, right, all the time,
right?
I'd be in the hotel room with time. He would take the pillowcases off the pillow and turn them inside out and then put them on. And in the beginning, I said, "What the hell are you doing?" He says, "Mr. Plum, there are germs here. No matter, I don't care how many, no face, nothing has touched the inside of this pillow.
Right.
So I choose to do that." Germophobic, man.
Yeah.
I'd have to call ahead to restaurants that we were going to, even 5-star restaurants, the Four Seasons in New York, and I go, I'm bringing in Tiny Tim, and I'd have to give them an agenda.
Yeah.
Plastic spoons, plastic forks, straws. Nobody opens a bottle. He only has to open the bottle.
Right.
He was crazy that way.
That's remarkable. Unbelievable.
But they did it for him, you guys, because he was Tiny Tim. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I'll tell you what, let me take a one last commercial break, and we will be back right after this word from our friends at Shopify.
Jess wanted to start a business when something surprising happened.
Today, I'm going to teach you how to crochet.
She started crocheting, like a lot. And her friends noticed.
Jess, you need to sell those.
So, she signed up for Shopify and started building her business.
Yes, I love that.
And after a lot of hard work, this happened.
Oh my gosh, I just made my first sale!
You see, every day, hundreds of businesses get their first sale on Shopify.
We got ding!
And the next could be you. So when you're ready to bring your idea to life
and become your own boss,
build it on Shopify.
What's the Buzz Podcast? America's Best Podcast is live and on the air around the world. WWTF Radio is broadcast on the 88.7 frequency on the broadband radio system, globally live as it happens. And tonight, boy, do we have a hell of a show. What do you think, guys?
Oh, it was fantastic. We had...
Forget that you were a part of this show. If you saw this show tonight, would you flip the fuck out or what? It was a great show.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Doesn't Angelo have a way of putting things?
Yes, he does.
That's why I'm here.
Hey, he's so subtle, isn't he?
By the way, on a serious note, I'm seeking representation. So if there are any management people out there, here you go. The mad dog is looking. Putting it out there. Knowing that I have one sitting right here in front of me, Stephen Plim, you still won't represent me, a little prick.
Because he's probably going to represent me first. I'm just kidding.
Represent you for what?
We could make it a package deal, okay?
There you go. See?
No, this ain't no package. That package is going back to Amazon.
Oh, thanks a lot. Look at you. But no, listening to Tiny Tim singing that song, Tiptoe Through the Tulips, reminded me a lot of my dad because he used to sing that song to us a lot as kids. And then when he started playing it, because he had the album, and I was like, my dad's starting to clean again. We're starting. Get up, everybody. My mom and dad are starting to clean because they started taking turns playing their albums.
Yeah.
Yep.
Were your parents? No, I was going to ask her, are your parents, were they fans of Tiny Tim at that time?
Yes. Even especially my dad. My dad was a huge fan. Still is.
Wow.
Yeah. Scary, ain't it, Steve? It's a frightening thought, but you know what, though? If you think about something on a serious note, that's exactly what an icon is. That's what a legend is. Somebody who transcends their own life.
Yes.
That's very good.
People 100 years from now, Stephen, 100 years from now, people will be talking about George Schlatter and Tiny Tim and Dan Rowan and Dick Martin and Stephen Plym.
Yeah, I was going to say Stephen Plym. Don't forget.
They won't be talking about Pitbull Chapman or Mad Dog DeCipio for damn sure. You know?
Yeah, nice accolade, but man, when we're gone, we're gone. There's 2 or 3 weeks of mourning and then a year of remember him, and it's all over.
But that's the thing, though. Listen to me. Here's what I'm saying. I'm being serious, so bear with me. I'm being very serious. Tiny's been gone for a long, long time, and he's still with us. His music is here. His videos are here. His movies are here. His albums are certainly still. His albums are still selling. Steve.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And you're probably making a couple of bucks on them. I know that you have some of Tiny's merchandising, some of his licensing. But let's be honest about it. Let's be just candid about it. He's still selling. He's still selling.
Let me tell you how smart you are, mister. And I mean this seriously. Okay. Tiny Tim right now, I'm not trying to equate him to Elvis Presley's money at all, but Tiny Tim is making more money right now than he did when he was alive. You get that. Because you've been in show business. You understand it.
Okay? I do.
Most people don't. And I don't have time to go into it, but Tiny Tim was an icon before there was Kiss with makeup, before there was all these artists with exotic things. There was Tiny Tim.
Yeah.
And he dressed that way every day when he went to the supermarket.
That's just scary.
When he and I would pick him up, he goes, Mr. Plym, I have to go to. My God, you know what that would be? 3 hours. Because up and down the aisles, he has to read every label, and then people come, and then he has to sing to everybody. It's 3 hours at a time. Used to drive me fucking nuts.
I'm going to ask you to do something for me, Steve.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to ask you to do something for me, and if you don't do it, I'm going to play Stephen Plym's version of For What It's Worth on the air.
How did you know I had that?
Because I'm fucking
we found
the mad dog. Do you know that I'm the mad dog?
Yeah.
I know shit. Don't you know that?
My band, just for listeners and viewers,
I have the record.
My band, the Fabulous Kingpins, had a hit record called For What It's Worth. We copied the Buffalo Springfield, but we did it up tempo and everything, and it was a big hit. He just got me. What are you doing?
Well, here's what I'm doing. I'm going to blackmail you with that song. But what I want from you, because I have to hear it again.
Uh-oh.
I want you to tell Amelia and the rest of the world the story of Tiny, his birthday party, and the inflatable present that he got.
Oh, it's one of my favorite stories.
I'll
Easy for me to tell.
Go ahead.
Thank you for bringing it up. But I'm telling you, Hey, here's to all your listeners all over the world. Okay.
Amelia,
Long story
pay
short,
attention.
Tiny Tim's birthday is April 12th.
Mhm.
I would always have, and I moved into Des Moines, Iowa, okay, for PR things. We can go into that later, but every April 12th at my home in Des Moines, okay, we would have a big birthday celebration for Tiny. I'd invite the media, friends that were media, and all my family and everything. We just had a celebration. And Tiny would be sitting in my leather white chair. That was his chair, right? And he would be drinking Bush beer with a straw, getting fucking smashed, okay? And it was all fun. And everybody's bringing him, like a Christmas thing, everybody's bringing him presents at his feet. He would open them and thank them and all that. I saved mine for last. Angela knows this. Mine was for last. I wanted to be, I wanted to close the show big. And I had an inflatable doll. Remember in those days, inflatable sex doll? People they would do that with them, okay? It wasn't a joke. So, but it was a joke for me to buy it for him. And he opened it up and he looked at it. He says, Mr. Plum, what is this? Oh, it's a blow-up doll. Okay, now watch. The hook is good. Okay, he goes, oh, I don't know. Oh, he was all confused. Okay, now watch. Later that night, after everybody went home, we're all smashed, whatever. It was 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. My phone rings. I got my phone right above my bed. I answered, yeah, it's Tiny. He goes, very serious. Listen, very serious, like dramatic. He goes, Mr. Plint. And remember, I'm half asleep. Mr. Plint, your wonderful urethane doll, your wonderful urethane doll that you bought me for my birthday. I blew it up. It was wonderful. It was beautiful. I had sex in it in every orifice that you can name. Then I was so guilty. I chopped it up with scissors and I threw it out the window. And then
Oh my gosh.
True story.
When
Can you fucking believe that?
He had sex with it.
Oh, by the way, he was specific in every orifice you had.
There's
And then,
one more
guilty.
talk about. See, Stephen, you and I are from the old school of show.
Oh my goodness.
Always
Yeah, we
leave the show with the best material.
Oh my goodness.
Finish this show tonight, Stephen. You are going to take us home. Finish the show with telling Amelia and the rest of our audience about Mr. Vincenti.
That, my friend, is a long story, and you don't have time for it. And by the way, and only Angelo knows that his name wasn't Vincente. I had to use that so I didn't get sued.
The name, yeah.
Okay. But in lieu of that story, because it takes a long time, I'll be really short with this because I know you're on time. Okay.
Yes.
One night we're out,
5 minutes,
Honey and I, and there's no job or anything. He wants me to take him to this supermarket and this place and blah blah blah. Okay. All of a sudden he goes, "Take me to this Walgreens." You know where I'm coming from, Angela.
Oh, gotcha.
Goes,
Go ahead.
Yeah. Then he goes, "Stop at this Walgreens. Oh, stop at this place that has pharmaceuticals." I'm going, what the hell? Right? And wait, so he came out in the car every time with a big bag of stuff. I don't know what was in it, right? But all of a sudden we stop at a thing and the car stops short and all this Oragel, Oragel for your teeth, for pain, falls out in the front of my car on the floorboard. I go, what? I mean, literally dozens of Oragels, right? And Tiny looks at me, looked really weird. And I said, Tiny, is this what you've been buying everywhere? He said, yes. I said, why? What are you doing? He says, Mr. Clem, let me explain this. All of you men with sexual partners can last forever. I can only last 2 or 3 seconds. But I figure this, the wonderful, and he call it the wonderful Oragel. It numbs the tooth for no pain or no feeling. So I feel it could numb my penis for no And I can last longer like you guys. That that's what he did.
That's a true story, Amelia.
Oh my goodness.
True story.
We must have had, Amelia, we must have had 100 tubes of Oragel on my floor.
Oh my goodness.
Not kidding. True story.
How can you make shit up like that?
Right.
Oh man, I'll tell you what. I love shows like this, folks. It doesn't get any better than Stephen M. Plym and George Schlatter, legendary, iconic producer, along with one of the finest entertainment manager agents around. And us two schleps over here, me and the Pitbull.
Well,
I'll tell you,
I just want to say this in closing. I want to say this in closing, okay?
Yes, sure.
And no bullshit, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up your partner's ass, okay? And he knows that, okay? I've watched you guys. I've watched him specifically, okay, Angelo, for the last 5 or 6 years, okay, building his business, building his, repertoire, building his everything. Okay, there's no harder worker. There's no harder worker than him.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
He does all the homework. He doesn't
he does.
He didn't want to. He doesn't go on stage with people.
No.
And ask him questions. He already knows the answer.
Oh, yes,
he's like
he does.
a smart lawyer. He already knows the answer before he answers the question.
He's a good teacher.
So nobody can fucking fool him. Okay.
Nope. Oh no, they can't. He's proven that.
Yeah. We have a couple of psychics and ghost hunters that will attest to that.
That
flipped us off the bird and called us names then.
Well, I just like, just like the artists that I've handled in my life, and I watch them grow, people that I handle and grow and mature into their thing. And they're all talented, but they needed maturity and this and guidance. Okay. I wasn't fortunate enough to manage your partner here, but my analogy is I've watched him through his shows way back when. Okay. I don't mean better guests, but I mean high profile guests, guests that draw an audience in. Okay. And then he does his homework. He knows the questions to ask. He already knows it. Okay. Yes. And that's why he's so successful. And I love it. I've watched him. I've followed him. I have followed him.
Yes, I love that. Boy,
he's a fantastic person. And I told him that every day. And I thank him every day for helping me and teaching me everything he knows.
What are you doing down where you're at right now? I must ask.
I'm unemployed right now, so I'm looking for work.
Okay.
They've turned me down several times, but I'm going to keep on going.
Okay, can I steal you from DeCipio? Come with me.
I've been trying to get rid of her for the last.
He has been. He's been trying to get rid of me.
No, I'll tell you what.
By the way, Angelo, I got to tell you something on a side note here before you close out.
Sure.
This afternoon, about 3:00, and I'm watching your ad. I had all my peeps, not all of them, but probably 50 or 60. Okay. See this phone here?
Yeah.
It's loaded with accolades of what we just did from my people.
Yeah.
Wow.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'll tell you what, I got to tell you something. It's making the rounds. So I'm very grateful. I will tell everybody that this is one hell of a way to finish out the week.
Yes.
Join Amelia the Pitbull and myself Monday, Tuesday, and every Wednesday for What's the Buzz, America's Best Popcast. We have a brand new show that premieres on Wednesdays. It is called That's Bullshit with Rico and Stretch. And Pitbull's got her hands full with that one, God help you. You thought I'm bad? You got double trouble with them two, kid. I got news for you. On behalf,
Amelia, I got to tell you something. You're beautiful. You're articulate. I love seeing you partners with him.
Yes,
okay. And I think both of you, I'm telling you, man, you two, that combination of you two.
Yes, sir.
Wow. The sky's the limit with you guys.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah. Thank you so
You know
much.
what, Amelia? I'm gonna have to I'm going to have to give you a night off, Neil, because I think, at this rate, I got to have Stephen Plym as a special guest co-host one night.
Oh, absolutely. He would make a great special co-host.
You know
I'd be
what?
honored.
I think what I'm going to do, I'll just tell you right now, I got the perfect show for you, Steve.
Yes.
I have my friend Lacey J. Dalton coming back.
I turned her on to you.
I know that you know Lacey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I never did business. We had some meetings and blah, 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 but I did turn her on to you because I met with her in Reno, Nevada. We were going to do a pilot that never worked out, but I love her.
She told us about that. Yeah. We talked about that, actually. Yes.
We absolutely talked about it, for sure.
She's a great gal.
Oh, my God. Absolutely. You gotta love a woman that calls you.
I have pictures on the internet with her. I'm sure I've inundated your partner with them because Lacey G. Dalton and me, when I had my arm around her and we were dancing at the studio, just impromptu. Wow, man, it was great.
Oh.
On that note, for Stephen M. Plym, the M stands for money. For Amelia, the Pitbull Chapman, I am Angelo, the Mad Dog DeCipio. This is America's Best Popcast. What's the buzz? We will see you Monday night at 7 p.m. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. Take care, folks. Be kind to each other, and God bless America. Good night. Bye-bye.
Some viewers may find the following